Chairman. A little deja vu going on, Secretary. I want to make a motion to do some things, but
I'll second it.
Thank you, Representative Sam McLean, in my new district as part of Marion County, part of Volusia County, and part of Lake County. Obviously, I've served Marion County for a long time. It's been my pleasure, and we're glad to be here today, and look forward to taking up, listening to the issues and challenges that you all face. Thank you.
Mr. Chamberlain.
Hello, everyone. I'm Representative Ryan Chamberlain, also known as the new guy. I represent District 24, which is much of Ocala, all the way down to near the village area. And my district encompasses, it's only inside of Marion County, so it's a big part of what we're talking about today right here in Marion County. I'm based out of Bellevue, Florida, but have lived in Marion for 40, out of 50, coming up 50 years of my life. And my beautiful wife is with me. We've raised our family here. We're proud to be serving you in District 24. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And I am Senator Bobby Payne. I'm in my final year, my 8th year serving. As Senator Perry said, my business is almost up. But I've had the good opportunity to serve numerous communities. Putnam is the heart of my area. I'm from Palatka. Previously served portions of Clay, all of Bradford, all of Union. New district now, District 20 has been serving all of Putnam, part of St. John's up to St. Augustine. Another portion of Clay, about half of Clay County, all the way down to North Marion, Ocala. So I'm fortunate to have that opportunity and can look forward to our discussions today. I'm proud to be able to serve you. A couple of orders of business. Let's make sure that you have your cell phones turned off, please, so that we can move through the agenda. It is a long slated agenda today, 4 hours. So I'll ask you to be concise in your comments and your requests. Often we have in these delegation meetings a lot of redundancy from speakers. And so if there's a lot of redundancy, please be mindful of the speaker prior to you or so we don't get repeats on comments. We do have a video. Ashley, I believe you have the opportunity to start a video for us. And Alicia, here we go. All right, there we go. Good, thank you. That's it. Thank you. So that was the second introduction of us. Let me also say today that the 2024 legislative session will convene on January the 9th, 2024. We will be starting committee weeks soon. In fact, I think the House starts committee weeks. I know they start a committee week this week, beginning on Sunday. Senator Perry, you guys, 2 weeks from today, so, or this weekend. And I mentioned to silence your cell phones. And that's it. So let's get started. Our first speaker today is Honorable Michelle Stone, Vice Chair, Marion County Commission. Welcome.
Thanks, sir. And good afternoon, Mr. Chair and delegation members. I'm Marion County Board of County Commissioners, Vice Chair Michelle Stone. It's a pleasure to welcome you all here today. And on behalf of the County Commissioners, I want to thank the delegation for the good work that was done last year. We're looking forward to the 2024 session. We have 4 appropriation requests. You should have a booklet in front of you with the Marion County legislative priorities. Those 4 appropriation requests, one is to bring municipal drinking water services to Lowell, $7 million. roadway and utility improvements to ease traffic on I-75 by way of 80th Avenue and the planned new 49th Avenue interchange. Both of these are broken into two sections for the entire project. The total goal there is to bring home $4,475,000. The third is planning and design of the new medical examiner building, and this is on behalf of Districts 5 and District 24 Medical Examiner Advisory Committee. There is a need to expand and actually build a new facility and we're looking to do 30,000 square foot, which will include a morgue as well as administrative section, and will also be expandable in the future. Total price tag for that is $2.86 million, and that would be for the architectural and engineering design services. The other counties associated with these districts will also be asking and supporting this request. The fourth and final appropriation request is for the expansion of the Marion County Judicial Center. The state attorney's office for the 5th Judicial Circuit has reached their capacity, and Marion County is looking to expand the Judicial Center and requesting to expand part of our 4th floor of the building that is already there. It will bring new office space and a grand jury courtroom. We also have 5 legislative language requests. You have the bullet points in your packet. And last, the section is our local priorities, and that first priority to highlight is again continuing to bring swimming into the Silver Springs. And this has been a long sought after project for the last 10 years. We've worked on this. Representative Payne, thank you for visiting, and Representative McLean, you've been working on that before you actually even got to Tallahassee. So hopefully we will see that seasonal swimming returns at Silver Springs before this session is over. Additionally, Marion County is going to be working directly with Fort King Heritage Foundation as they submit an appropriations request. We also ask that all of you will continue to support the septic to sewer programs to again take effluent out of the aging septic tanks and reduce the toll that they're taking on our sensitive areas. And then finally, to support our Florida Job Growth Grant Program application for the Florida Crossroads Commerce Park designed to strengthen the county's economy. So I want to thank you all for your time and your attention today. I look forward, on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, we all look forward to working with you in 2024 and making it a very successful year.
Thank you, Commissioner. Members, comments, questions? I would say that we've recently spoken with Secretary of DEP. I've had 2 meetings with him in the last 2 weeks on Silver Springs. So there is efforts on that, and we'll keep pushing that.
We appreciate it.
Next, the Honorable Greg Harrell, and I know Greg and Michelle know this, but please, members, don't touch the microphone. There's reason by someone behind the curtain. Reason behind the curtain.
Thank you, Representative Payne. Thank you, delegation. I am Greg Harrell. I'm the Marion County Clerk of Court and Comptroller. But beyond thanks to the delegation, I want to thank your team members and your staff members, because as somebody who leads a team, I know we are only as good as the folks around us. I appreciate the relationships, not only with each of you, but with your team members very much. Thank you for being here today. As a proud Marion County boy, I would say we have the best delegation in the state and the best county in the state, and I appreciate you all being part of that. Relationships matter, and the relationships that my fellow constitutional officers here in Marion County and that I as clerk have with you guys are paramount, and I thank you for that. I know that during the course of the year, we've had the opportunity to work with Senator Perry on some criminal justice issues, Representative McLean with some statutory issues regarding fees in the building industry, Representative Hinton, we've had an opportunity to appear alongside each other at the Mary Sue Ridge Center. I appreciate those opportunities. Representative Payne, your clerk in Putnam County, I call him the tall guy. If you're the new guy, Representative Chamberlain, Clerk Reynolds and I have an opportunity to serve on the executive committee of the Florida Court Clerks and Comptrollers Association. So we appreciate you guys. Representative Chamberlain, look forward to sort of forging that relationship with you as we move forward. You have some materials with you today from our office. I would say the legislature has gone leaps and bounds ahead in recent years in understanding the complex network of things that the clerk of court and comptroller's office does. You have some materials that sort of re-articulate those for you. When we come before you in Tallahassee now, you guys understand what we're talking about, and we appreciate that. So this is just a tool to help remind you about that. One thing that our office was also able to do this year was create what's called a PAFR, or a Popular Annual Financial Report for Marion County. So as you go about your daily business and do your work in part representing the citizens and residents of Marion County, I would encourage you to take a look at that document. It's sort of the synthesis of our financial picture. So I'm very proud of that document. It's something we want to do. It's the first time we were able to create that here in Marion County. If you ever have any questions about that, just let me know. Last year's bill that you guys passed for clerks helped us with redirecting some filing fees that help fund what we need to do. The Revenue Estimating Commission took a little bit of a knife to some of that. And so the reason why that happened was with the tort reform bill that happened, there was an influx of civil filings that happened right before the bill was passed. So we had a whole bunch of civil cases filed this year that won't necessarily be filed in the year to come. That directly affects clerks' budgets. But we certainly appreciate you all with the help you gave us. This year's bill will probably be a smaller number, but it'll have a similar type of approach. So I look forward to having those discussions with you guys. I'm always available and here at your disposal. But thank you for the good work that you did.
Next, we have Honorable Wesley Wilcox, Supervisor of Elections. Moving right along, Honorable Billy Woods, Marion County Sheriff. He's not here to speak to the sheriff. Honorable Jimmy Cohen, our property appraiser. Here, okay, well, this is Honorable George Albright, tax collector. Honorable Diane Gullen, Superintendent of Schools. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the delegation. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with you today as the Superintendent of Marion County Public Schools, the best district and county in the state of Florida. And so with me, you will see my wonderful board members. We have Chair Allison Campbell and Board Member Eric Cummings and Vice Chair Nancy Thrower. Can't have a high-performing district without high-performing, yes, on behalf of the others as well, Dr. James and Lori Conrad. We are one group, one team. Can't have a high-performing district. We are committed to helping every student succeed. And I'm going to emphasize every student in Marion County. And so I am blessed to work with this elected board that we are all about student outcomes. So I'll be very brief because you're going to hear from my board with some of the requests that we have. And I'm going to start with graduation. Graduation begins with early learning. I'm proud of the fact that we have added early learning centers in every one of our elementary schools in Marion County because we know that we need to set our students off for success in the earliest years. So I thank you for all that you're doing in Tallahassee to ensure that you're supporting our early learnings, because we know that early learners, because we know that they need those foundational skills to be successful and to finish the line of graduation. I also want to talk very briefly about attendance. Every minute matters. Every day, but every minute matters. And our students can't afford that lost time. If you drive by our district office today, I hope that maybe you will, it says no excuses. Hashtag attendance matters. No excuses. I shared yesterday with a group that I spoke at that even with 1 or 2 days of missed school, you start to see an impact to student achievement. So I'm asking you to please support what you're getting ready to hear from my board about attendance. We need your support. We need our community support because we know that every day counts for our students for them to be set up for success. Last but not least, we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can with those foundational skills, but also to set our students up for the choices that they want to make. And I'm going to emphasize choices. Whether they're going to go off to college and/or the workforce directly when they graduate with us, we need to make sure that we have pathways for them. So one of the critical things that you all have done and we are so grateful for is the support of the $5.5 million to expand our Marion Technical College, which will directly impact our future in Marion County. So without further delay, I would like to introduce our board chair, Allison Campbell. Thank you for your support.
Welcome, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the delegation. Dr. Gullett said it beautifully. Wanted to start out saying thank you. Thank you very much, first of all, for that appropriation request, the first expansion that we've been able to do at Marion Technical College. And to our knowledge, the first actual appropriation that we have submitted and been able to accomplish through the legislature. So thank you so much for that. But I also want to say a thank you because this time during the legislative delegation, we came before you with a pocket guide, as Marion County School Board always does. We came before you with a pocket guide with 5 priorities. And on that 5 priority list, 4 of those were very heavily looked at and actually real movement made on, including that appropriation request. So thank you so much. Our priorities are being heard by you and you're taking action on them. So thank you for that. It's a pleasure to serve as the chair of the Marion County School Board along with Vice Chair Nancy Thrower, Reverend Cummings, and then you see Ms. Conrad and Dr. James here as well. Unable to be with us in person, but with us here in spirit. As a unified board, we're coming before you again with 5 priorities. The first one will be phase 2 of the Marion Technical College, and we have appointments scheduled with all of you, or soon to be all of you, in the very near future to talk about what that looks like and how we'll be able to make that an even stronger priority for career technical education here in our community. But you also heard about attendance, and so I'm speaking from the bottom up on this. So strengthening state language on compulsory student attendance and parent accountability for such attendance, that's actually statute 1003.24. Right now it says 10 unexcused absences in a 90-day period. We want to see some change to that legislation. We need to certainly start holding people more accountable. 10 unexcused absences in 90 days. If that rolls over, a student could essentially miss 30 to 40 days a school year.
Stupid.
And that's the way the legislative language reads right now. So we need to adjust that language to try to hold people, families, and students more accountable for their attendance. We also have on here, as you may have been following in Marion County, we have a lot of capital needs in Marion County Public Schools. One of the ways that we are able to address capital funding is through the capital millage that we have. Back when the recession occurred, that millage rate was adjusted down from 2.0 mils to 1.5. And our request is that we consider, now that public school districts are also sharing that millage with charter schools, that we increase that back up to the 2.0 as opposed to the 1.5 that we currently have. The other 2 are also legislative language changes. One of those would help us from an electronic signature standpoint. That's specifically section 1010.11 Florida statute to remove the language of electronic transactions complying with provisions of chapter 668. We can talk more about that when we see you. We'll be in Tallahassee in November, and we can talk more about how that impacts us. And the final thing, since Dr. Gullett mentioned so strongly about early education, we understand how important early education is. The strong emphasis on the VPK program and the 4-year-olds receiving education. We believe it's time that this legislature address that kindergarten should start at age 5 instead of age 6. If we're having VPK at 4, let's just continue that on. Whenever we have students that are not required to be in school until age 6, it really is causing an impact. We know how important early learning is, and we hope that we can address that in this legislative cycle. Thank you so much for all of your work and for hearing us again as a unified board. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Next, Honorable Jim Guilty, City Council President, City of Ocala.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the delegation. I am City Council President Jim Hilty. On behalf of my fellow council members, the mayor, and the citizens of Ocala, I thank you for making time for us today and the work that you do for us in Tallahassee. First and foremost, thank you for the financial assistance provided in the current budget year for spring protection and water projects. It's critical that we continue to protect this region's springs and implement measures to offset our dependence on the upper Florida aquifer. Thank you for helping us to continue these missions. We understand that we just one of many, as you will probably hear from today, communities that you represent, and we're grateful for your support for our beautiful city. Many in our community continue to experience significant increases in property insurance rates. We appreciate your ongoing work to reform the current property insurance environment in our state. Like many communities throughout the state, Ocala faces housing challenges. To that end, we ask you continue to fully utilize the Sadowski Trust Fund and the SHIP program and support programs that provide affordable workforce and veterans housing, including down payment assistance and tenant-based assistance. With regard to the funding priorities as a community with immense natural beauty, the citizens of Ocala are grateful for this delegation's hard work to protect natural resources throughout the state, including our region's first magnitude spring, and your support of our region's transportation needs. Recognizing the budget resources are limited, we have taken a hard look at our request to ensure they align with leadership priorities to protect our state's water resources and our citizens' quality of life. Each of our appropriation requests include a 1-to-1 match. Our requests include projects that establish an alternative drinking water supply in the lower Florida aquifer, reduce the amount of nutrient loading into our springs, provide upgrades to an additional capacity for our water infrastructure, and improve safety, connectivity, and accessibility for pedestrians and vehicular traffic. As you approach the 2024 session, please know that my colleagues and I, along with city staff, are always available as your resource. We are grateful for your personal and professional sacrifices you make to serve again, so thank you for the hard work you do on behalf of the people of Ocala. We look forward to meeting with each of you in Tallahassee next year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Honorable Mike Balkin, Chief of Police. Ocala Department. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mike Balkin, Ocala Police Chief. It's great to see so many familiar and friendly faces up here. I want to thank you for your public service, what you do for us up here in Tallahassee. But I want to come to you today with some issues, concerns that I have as it relates to my profession specifically. Quite frankly, it's my humble opinion that most Floridians, certainly the folks here in Ocala, seem to believe that we live in this last bastion of law and order and tough on crime approaches here, and quite frankly, what we're seeing on the streets, at least in the city of Ocala, and I would argue across the state when I talk to my counterpart chiefs, our conferences is quite different. You know, what we see in cities like Seattle, New York, Atlanta, these soft on crime approaches where we have lawmakers turning victims into criminals and victims ends up with people getting shoved in front of subway trains and the like. We see this on a daily basis where that appearance of this last bastion of tough on crime, it's a smokescreen, quite frankly. Just a couple of months ago, we had an armed gunman introduce pistol magazine to 3 of my police officers. They returned fire, killing that suspect. A little over 2 weeks ago, a homicidal suspect drove through a traffic crash heated about 60 miles an hour, hit a pedestrian intentionally, launching him about 50 feet in the air. The ensuing pursuit led to that subject driving his car into one of my sergeant's police cars at 91 miles per hour. He spent some time in the ICU, got downgraded, ultimately got out of rehab yesterday. He went home. The 2 police officers that were shot at in Orlando, all these were preventable because none of these offenders should have been out on the street. We know that for a fact. I could give dozens of similar examples in which our society is being victimized by offenders who should have been incarcerated long before they were allowed to commit such heinous crimes. The fact of the matter is that our punishment code, which sets a score sheet for adults, is failing us at every turn, allowing these criminals to wreak havoc across our state. And oftentimes they're leaving dead bodies in their wake. And it seems to be just for the purpose of lowering prison costs and incarceration rates. Similar problems at not even a greater level exist within the juvenile justice system, where the juvenile risk assessment instrument, or the DRE, as we're all familiar with it, as prevents the incarceration of young offenders who are out there terrorizing our neighborhoods. Our officers arrest them over and over and over again, and these kids are returned to their homes before the ink is dry on police reports, and that is a failure. We're teaching these kids that there's no consequences for their actions, and that crime does in fact pay, and it's not until they turn 16 or 17, commit a violent crime, and we look at the state attorney and say, hey, can you direct file on this kid? You know what, chief, we can. And we send them away for a decade, and we all applaud each other and pat each other on the back and think that that's some sort of success, when in fact it's a failure on all of our parts to not hold that kid accountable when he's this big after his first offense. I'm not a lock him up and throw away the key, chief, but I'm telling you, we're failing our kids, we're failing these adults, we're failing our citizens, we're putting our cops at risk. This is evident across the state, you can see it on the news reports every day. Law enforcement officers are out there fighting a good fight each and every minute of the day, but our cause is clearly not supported by either that adult prison score sheet or that juvenile risk assessment instrument. I'm not here to ask for any money, like everybody else in the room. What I would love is some kind of champion up in Tallahassee who's willing to work with us, the police chiefs, the sheriffs, and revamp this broken system that we have.
Yep.
What we're doing is working. We are getting closer and closer to the Seattles, the Atlantas, and the New Yorks of the world, whether we all want to admit it or not. But that is the truth, and that's what we see day in and day out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Thomas. Next, Honorable Christine Kowski, the Mayor of the City of Bell.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Christina Kowski, representing the citizens of the city of Bellingham. I just wanted to take a moment today to thank you for all your help and support over all of the years that you served on this board. Last year, the city of Bellevue received money to put a new roof on City Hall, as well as a sewer crossing on 441, and also a much-needed pump station. These are projects that were much needed to be funded by the legislature, and we greatly appreciate it. Therefore, we do not have any appropriation requests this year because we will be busy completing those projects. I just wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Honorable Wally Dunn, Mayor of the City of Denver. Marshall Roddy, Mayor of McIntosh. Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Before I get started, my name's Frank Snoddy, by the way, from the town of McIntosh.
That's all right.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you, Chairman Payne, for the privilege to speak. But I would like to introduce our councilmen, our elected officials. Y'all stand. If you look at this Councilwoman Jones, Mark Nowinski, and our mayor, Marshall Roddy, and also seated next to them is our town manager, as product of our community colleges, and Jessica Gonzalez, and our new member of our team. Thank you very much. There's kind of like a little echo, so if you couldn't hear me, let me know. The first thing I want to do, I know I have 2 minutes, so I'll make them McIntosh minutes. We're so proud of the town of McIntosh, oak trees, Victorian homes. Each year, we have a festival, and you all are welcome to our festival. You may not want to come, but your spouse or significant other would want to know the date, which is October 14th. And by the way, it's a jury festival with wonderful arts and crafts. And they also, this is our 50th festival held in the town of McIntosh. So it's been an effort. We donate our money and our profits, we give it to underprivileged folks, people who need help, people who can't pay their rent or their electric. We help the community, not only McIntosh, everywhere in there. So we're making our 3rd request. for an appropriation. If you haven't been to our town, we have a modular building, Ms. Hinson has been there. It was an old Sunbank, 40 years ago. If you don't know the story, Sunbank cut down an oak tree in McIntosh and put a bank. No one ever used the bank. So they folded after 6 months. So that's a little history of why that old Sunbank is sitting there. So we need a real office so we could have public meeting spaces. We also have hired Andrew Kaplan, if you don't know, is a famous Gainesville architect. He's done quite a few things in Gainesville. We've hired him, and we have some rough drawings coming in. So we want a hardened building. We need something where we could go if there's a storm. We need something that our residents can have. We need something with a generator. It's pretty much out there north of town, so to speak. In your package, you'll see the current building schematics. All of the town of McIntosh wants this year is $275,000. We have $275,000 earmarked to match it, so we could build us a building. And Mr. Perry promised before he retired, we would have a new town. So hopefully we can make that happen. On behalf of the town of McIntosh, thank you all for your support of Marion County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Next, we got a series of judges, 5th Judicial Circuit Judges, Honorable Robert Hodges. Honorable Ann Belinda Craig. Honorable Jennifer Bass. Honorable Peter Brigham. Honorable Christy Phyllis. Honorable Lisa Herndon. Honorable Greg Gerald. Honorable Stephen Rogers. Honorable Gary Sanders. Honorable Anthony Potty. Honorable Stacy Gilman. Marion County Judges, Honorable Lori Cotton. Honorable Robert Lant. Honorable Thomas Thompson III. Honorable Leanne Big Arms. Good to know our court system is functioning together. Testimonies, so folks, for testimonies, there is a light on the podium that will illuminate when your time is up. Please do your best to stay on your time. Additionally, and one other thing I wanted to mention, if you'd like to speak and you've not turned in an appearance card, please. We'll start with Dr. James Henningsen, the president of College of Central Florida. President, good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fred, come on up. I've got one of my district board trustees, Mr. Fred Roberts Jr. here. Honored to have him appointed by Governor DeSantis. So thanks for your service. I am colorblind, so I may not see any of the lights here. I'm just warning you.
Good for the black and blue today.
Exactly. You know my style. But first up, when they say you've got a powerful delegation, we absolutely have a powerful delegation, and welcome aboard. Rep. Chamberlain, we're excited to have you on here and seeing great things coming from you also. But you came through for us last year, as you do. Every one of our priorities was achieved. And thank you. And what our mantra is workforce, workforce, workforce. And we'll find creative solutions, creative ways to do that. One of the things I think we're very proud of is those creative solutions. So 1 + 1, the school district may not like this, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. Unless you invest in us, 1 + 1 equals 3, 4, 5, or sometimes 6. And you've already had our priorities in front of you and before. And one of the things I think we're really excited about is, again, how do we bring in more local assets to help? We don't have any local millage, any local taxes to fall back on. We rely on donors, opportunities. We funded the Line Fund, the Lincoln Industry and Nursing Education. We were the top provider last year with a $6.7 million gift. We got a commitment again for a $5 million gift for nursing for Citrus County. And that's gonna allow us to sit, any Citrus resident can come to our nursing program at any site in perpetuity for free. The #1 rated nursing program in the state of any college or university. So excited about that. The other piece we've got is our foundation has just gifted us a building. So instead of asking you for a brand new building, all right, how can we come up with a better way to bring some local dollars? 25,000 square foot building they paid for. It's only 20 years old. The board has voted to gift it to the college for us to expand health science and teacher education. Programs are desperately needed here. So we're seeking renovation dollars at a lower cost to the taxpayer from that one, and just excited about that piece. But it does take fuel in the gas tank. We got a high performance race car here in the state, and you've all told us that. We like a high octane fuel to get in there for operating dollars to help pay for these workforce programs. And we rely completely on you to keep our tuition flat, as it moved in a long, long time. So we rely on legislative appropriations. But great to have my team. Thank you for your service. And Brett, please, Mr. Trustee.
Thank you so much for what you do for our county, for what you do for the communities to make it up. On behalf of the trustees, we just want to say how appreciative we are for the tremendous support in the 2023 legislative session. We are very excited about what 2024 holds. We've got some priorities that we think are extremely meritorious, and we just want to thank you in advance for the support that we know that you're going to bring on behalf of the college and on behalf of the good work that we're going to be doing for our students. So thank you all so much for listening to us today, and we appreciate everything that you do.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate you. Thank you. Next, Kevin Shealy, CEO of Ocala Metro Chamber of Economic Partnership.
Mr. Chair, members, thank you so much. It's always an opportunity to talk about the priorities of the business community. And it's no surprise to you, you've already heard all of these priorities. Because what is good for our college and our school system and our county and our city is good for the business community. We know the things that allow business to be successful in our community are things that allow individuals to be successful. We support those priorities. So just to reiterate some of these things, we're a growing state. You all see this. We're a growing community. Ocala Metro over the last 5 years has been the 7th fastest growing metropolitan area in the country on 392 metropolitan areas. Nearly 1,000 people a month are moving into our community. And that's key about workforce. Across the state, for every 100 open jobs, there are 63 Floridians looking for jobs. But in the Ocala Metro, in this part of the state, there's only 49. So we have more jobs than we have people, and that's so important to bring people into our community. And so that's the reason we support some of the key things you've just heard. The College of Central Florida is focused on workforce education, on the new facility that will allow them to expand their health science program. There's some additional priorities that they have in their list that help us business plan, CDL, and so there are other technical training programs. The school system mentioned their Marion Technical College Phase 2. We strongly support that because it will allow us to expand programs in CNA, electrical apprenticeship, HVAC, phlebotomy, plumbing, and welding. All areas in which we have tremendous need in our community. As we continue to grow, we must fill these positions. There's nowhere currently to train for these programs. This will allow us to expand that training. Transportation infrastructure. Vice Chair Stone from the County Commission talked about those key funding issues. We all know that in the budget, there's nearly $500 million for the expansion of I-75. But we also need to look at 49th Street, which is part of the request, and 80th Avenue, as we continue to expand those to move local traffic, to get local traffic off the interstate, to also give us other routes for when we do have to shut down different lanes of the interstate because of accidents. Tourism, and I think this is a fascinating number. From April of 2022 to March of 2023, tourist spending generated $1.1 billion in this community. That's money that's getting spent back over. That's making everyone in this community wealthier. It's helping to fund things that we so vitally need. We're seeing tremendous growth in some of our private tourism assets, like World Equestrian Center and FAST. But we need to see investment made in Silver Spring. We talked about bringing back swimming. I would take that a step forward further and say we really need to see the state significantly invest in this jewel. It is a great, amazing park that hasn't seen a lot of investment in quite a while. We need to invest in this jewel. If we believe in it like we say we do, we need to invest in it, and that will further drive tourism development in our state and in our community. And lastly, the legislature last year took a big step with the Live Local bill. We're big supporters of that, but we know affordable housing is so important. We continue to need to look for ways to get outside the box to address that. We're working on that very closely within the business community, the city and the county. How do we address affordable housing? Can we look to work with the legislature on ways to address that? I appreciate your support and thank you for what you do for our community and for our state.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Folks, the microphone is available if you're on your left-hand side. You're welcome to use the mic. And next is Carol Savage, PACE Center for Girls in Marion County. Welcome, Steph.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Payne, as well as honorable members of the delegation. I'm Carol Savage with PACE Center for Girls. Many of you have interacted with PACE through the years. You're familiar with our organization. For those who may not be, we started in 1985, in January of 1985 with one center in Jacksonville, and now we are 21 centers strong throughout the state of Florida, as well as providing therapy services in Georgia, South Carolina, and continuing to expand. So we are here today to just say thank you. We would not be here today had it not been for the legislative support from the beginning, and it continues today, and it affects and makes a positive difference in so many lives of our girls. In Marion County alone, we've been here since 2001. We have served over 2,000 girls in our community. Keeping in mind, this is a choice program. Some of our girls have had a little bit of a run-in with the Department of Juvenile Justice. Some have not. Some have just suffered trauma in another form, because all of them do. But regardless, they choose to come to us. And so when we talk about the girls that come to us and the girls that we are serving on a year-round basis, providing those academics as well as providing that therapy and those counseling services they need, we look at where they come from. In the last year, 21% of our girls had a parent who was deceased, 65% had a criminal living in the house, 43% had parents who had substance abuse, 24% had suffered past mental abuse, 29% had suffered sexual abuse, and 27% had suffered physical abuse. So when we look at the numbers of the girls, and we look at where their attendance is, and we look at what they're doing in our communities, this tells you a little bit about what why not. And so then moving forward from that, we are here, and again, we thank you for the support, because we are here for those girls. We are here for those 2,000 plus girls we have served. And in our last year, 6 months out, the girls who are doing the PACE program in Marion County, 80% were either still in school, they had gone on to higher education, or they were gainfully employed. That's something we're pretty proud of with these young women, and the hurdle is insurmountable sometimes, odds that they are facing, but we never forget behind those numbers, those are girls. Those are girls just like Tamaya. And I brought Tamaya with us today and asked her to say a few words, because I can tell you stories I've heard through my 12 years with PACE. I can tell you that all day long, but they're not really my story, it's not my voice. So we think it's important that you hear just briefly from one of ours.
Hi, my name is Tamaya. I'm 15 and in 10th grade. I've been at PACE for close to 5 months now. The reason why I came to PACE is to work on some social skills and to get ahead in school so I can graduate early. PACE really helped me a lot by meeting new people, making me more mature, and helping me become a leader to the girls at my PACE Center. I was recently selected for Girls Leadership Institute at the PACE National Office in Jacksonville to represent PACE Marion, because I showed a lot of leadership and helped other girls make good decisions and trying to find the right paths for their future. After PACE, my goals are to go back to my high school and graduate so I can go to culinary school and open my own restaurant. I want to thank all of you for the support you give my PACE Center so girls I need can become more successful. Thank you.
Thank you for letting Tamaya have this opportunity to have her voice heard. Thank you for caring about our girls. It's demonstrated every day to the legislature. It's demonstrated when you're personally involved, and I know many of you are, and it's demonstrated in our community. We have amazing support in our community. So all of that combines for a very successful future for our girls who otherwise would not have that.
Thank you, Ms. Savage.
Thank you.
And thank you for reminding us of the finest days we have as Tallahassee legislators is when we have young people that come to our office and we see opportunities of hope for their success, and we see their successes. So we're all supporters of PACE, and We look forward to working with you again this year. Thank you.
Thank you. We will see you January 16th and 17th.
Next up is, Bill Thompson, Fort McCoy, VFW Veterans Village. Welcome, Mr. Thompson.
Good afternoon, Bill Thompson, again, VFW Veterans Village at Fort McCoy. I'd like to thank you, for the invite here today. We are a facility, the VFW recognized early on that we needed housing for veterans. We put together a plan and built a facility. We now have 70 rooms. We have 53 occupied at this point. We do have vacancies, but we operate on our budget. It's based on a small stipend from the residents that live there. They get a room, they get 3 meals a day, they have a laundry facility, they have a workout room, and 42 acres to, get outside and do things. Some of the issues we've had recently is internet access. We had a donor provide funding, and we're in the process of fixing that, which entails running about a mile of fiber optic line, so it's not cheap. One of the issues that we can use help with is transportation. We have to be able to get our veterans to doctor's appointments and that kind of thing. We have a van which is aging out, and replacement, is $150,000 plus, which is money that, all of our funding comes from the residents and donations to the VFW and other organizations. So we get no state or federal funding. It's something we're proud of, but at the same time, it does put a strain on us. So, and I'd like to introduce Mac Malusis. He's our VFW state commander, and
well, we thank you for listening to us today. Like Bill indicated, we do have some issues that we need some help with. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today and present our case. These are 50 veterans out there and families that live out there. They're happy with what we provide out there, but we'd like to be able to continue to do that. It's not a assisted living facility. They are independent, so they have to go outside for their doctors. We provide no medical services there, but we do need to get them to the various facilities, the military facilities, the VA facilities. So that's why we're here today. We're looking for some assistance so we can continue to support our veterans, which so greatly deserve what we can provide for them. We thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
And one other thing, in March of every year, we have a picnic, which is a fundraiser. We'd like to invite all of you this time, but also I'd like to invite you out for a tour of the shelter. We're very proud of it. Each residents, John Dale came by last week, and I think she can testify that we're in good shape, but at the same time, we invite you to support what you get. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next, from Marion County Guardian Lion, Christine Patashik. I bet you your name, you can correct me when you get to it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Was that close?
Hello. My name is Kirsten Pavchek, and I am the Assistant Circuit Director for the Guardian Ad Litem office. I'd like to start by thanking you for your continued support of our office. And I want to let you know that guardians assigned by the statewide Guardian Ad Litem office represent the legal interests of abused and neglected children in court and in the community. Every child appointed to the statewide Guardian Ad Litem office is assigned a Guardian Ad Litem attorney, a child welfare professional, and the hope is that they will be assigned a volunteer or pro bono attorney from the child's community if one's available. This representation model is national best practice. In the past year, this office has partnered with the legal community to develop and implement the Guardian Ad Litem attorney program training. This training helps meet the goals of the office and produces highly qualified Guardian Ad Litem attorneys. Our legal representation protects and advances the legal rights of children whose age and other limitations prevent them
from making their own decisions. One of the many considerations the Florida Guardian Ad Litem Office has to examine is a child's physical safety, emotional well-being, and permanent placement in a stable, nurturing home environment where the child can thrive. We provide zealous, independent representation, and our office is the only one on a child's case who provides undivided loyalty to that child. The Florida statewide Guardian Ad Litem Office appeared in 594 dependency appeals, and of the decisions rendered in 2022, the statewide Guardian Ad Litem Office won 98% of those appeals. This is an indicator of the high-quality, independent legal representation the state provides our most vulnerable children in Florida, the abused and neglected. On May 31st, 2023, the Children's Bureau verified that the statewide Guardian Ad Litem Office portion of Florida's cost allocation plan for the Title IV-E funding was approved. However, Florida's overall cost allowance plan is still unapproved. Once Florida's cap is approved, this funding will allow the statewide Guardian Ad Litem Office to represent abused and neglected and abandoned children in Florida's child welfare proceedings for the first time in Florida's history. In 2022, the office represented more than 36,000 children, and as of today, more than 1,600 of Florida's most vulnerable children will not receive representation due to the overall cap not being approved by the federal government. In closing, I'd like to add that the number of children represented in Florida has increased significantly. The Guardian Ad Litem Office currently provides representation to more than 91% of children in dependency proceedings. In 2022, the statewide Guardian Ad Litem Office was a Florida Tax Watch Award winner for this tremendous lift that impacted many children in foster care while saving tax dollars. I'd like to thank you for your time, service, and dedication to Florida's dependent children.
Thank you. Next, Lou Brown, Guardian Ad Litem, Alan Madden Foundation Team. Not here, okay? Jeff Harvey, CEO, Community Legal Services, Mid Florida.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, I just want to thank you all for being here. I see your service on this aspect, and I know that the job is, well, sometimes glamorous, probably not easy, especially hearing from all of us throughout the day, is a challenge, I know. So, my name is Jeff Harvey. I'm the CEO of Community Legal Services. I've been here in this role for about 4 years. But in addition, just so you're aware, I'm also a member of the National Guard. I'm currently Deputy Commander of the 164th Air Defense Brigade with units in Palatka, and previous commander of the 2nd of the 116th Field Artillery with a unit right here in Ocala. So I come with that perspective as well as the relationship between legal aid and disasters. This is Adriana Tran. She's our new Director of Government Relations. And please have your staff reach out to her if there's anything that we can do. Really why I'm here today is just to make you aware of the services we provide and urge you to leverage your staff to work with us so that we can help your constituents in any sort of situation that they may need an attorney, which helps both your offices as well as those constituents, because there's times that there's things you can't do that we can, and there's also things that we can't do that you all can in terms of dealing with government and legal issues. Community Legal Services is the largest legal aid in Florida, and we just got named the 8th largest law firm in Central Florida, so it's actually quite a large enterprise. We provide no-cost legal services to the most vulnerable in Central Florida to help them with their families, health, and livelihood. And last year, we served roughly 10,000 Floridians throughout our 12-county service area, which goes from coast to coast, 1,100 of which were in Marion County alone. As I mentioned, my only real ask here today is just to make sure that you're aware of our services and that your staff is aware, because we believe that every individual deserves access to a lawyer, to know their rights and understand the law, and really truly have meaningful engagement with the judicial system. Just as your duty in the legislative branch is to represent your constituents and ensure they are given the freedoms, liberties, and opportunities allowed to every American under the Constitution, we find it's our duty in the judicial branch, as an arm of that, to ensure that Americans are given a free and fair access to the courts and that same judicial system. But in addition to that, we find that our services help guard against economic downturn. We help ensure people don't slip through the cracks and that they're aware of the choices that they have in advance of having to make some difficult decisions, sometimes between two basic human needs. One particular case, just as an example, I'll call it Mr. Smith to protect his, I can't think of the word, but you know what I'm saying. Right, Mr. Smith and his wife bought a house about 18 years ago here in Marion County. They have the model home, they bought it from the corporation that was creating the subdivision, and they bought it in a rent-to-own fashion. 2 years into that corporation went into bankruptcy. The Smiths continued to pay their rent/mortgage payments into the trustee, and then eventually that home was abandoned. And this couple continued to make improvements to the home. They went in and they went back and paid $20,000 in back taxes and have done everything that they needed to do under the law to make this their home long-term. And without our assistance, they would not have been able to do so, and I'm proud to say that we were able to get that in just a few weeks ago. But in closing, unlike I think a lot of organizations, we don't try to teach somebody how to fish, nor do we give them fish. We really look to kind of secure their place at the pond and help them understand what the route is to get there and get them to do that on their own. So we'd love to meet with your staff in talk in more detail. We'd love to talk about anything related to judicial reform and consolidation. And again, thank you very much for your time and for hearing us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Particularly, I have a case that we may reach out to discuss. I see my nodding, so we'd love to have an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next, we have Jennifer Martinez, Executive Director of Marion County Senior Services.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for this opportunity and for your leadership. Marion Senior Services is a private 501c3 that has been operating and serving Marion County since 1973. We do it through three main service pillars: nutrition, in-home support, and transportation, through two major contracts, one through BOEA as your lead agency, and then also through the Florida Department of Transportation as your community transportation coordinator. Throughout our 50 years of service, Marion Senior Services has been an innovator and coordinator of community support services for older adults. The agency champions a system that recognizes the complexity of older adult issues and offers creative and cost-effective solutions by promoting a community support system that continually provides older adults who have varying degree of disability the appropriate individualized care and support they require. This ensures that each person served has the opportunity and required assistance despite the level of impairment to reach his or her highest level of functional independence and enjoy the highest quality of life. I would like to thank Representative McLean and Senator Perry for sponsoring our appropriation request last year, and the rest of you for approving the budget and our full appropriation funding. Our community has made significant headway in our co-response program in reducing our non-urgent 911 calls from the county's highest utilizers, which includes some individuals with dementia. The coordinated response allows for barriers to be removed and higher quality of service to be provided, while also reducing duplication of services. One of the main objectives of the program is to prevent unnecessary incarceration and or hospitalization of our elders. This allows our first responders to be just that, first responders, responding to emergencies rather than social issues. As I shared last November, we have reduced the calls to the Sheriff's Office by 54% with a cost savings of $70,000. Ocala Fire Rescue was able to appreciate over $60,000 in reduced 911 calls for service per quarter last year. For the upcoming session, we plan to ask for an amount to continue and possibly expand the program. We have met with the Department of Elder Affairs and are working with them to expand the program as they see fit as a state model. During the past year, Marion Senior Services has provided numerous services to thousands of our elderly residents of Marion County and received just as many phone calls from the community reaching out for staff assistance. Currently, the agency is serving 538 clients through the Community Care for the Elderly, Home Care for the Elderly, and the Alzheimer's Respite Care program. And while we have at least 1,500 clients waiting, we recognize people are dying before receiving assistance. I would like to thank Marion County for listing us in our priorities We humbly ask for you to consider increasing our funding as much as possible to serve as many seniors on the waiting list as possible. All of those programs are within general revenue. I thank you in advance for your consideration of this increased funding. And should you have any questions or would like additional information, please do not hesitate to ask. Marion Senior Services is honored to serve as your lead agency and looks forward to continuing answering the needs of the most vulnerable. I look forward to seeing you in Tallahassee a lot because I also have the excuse of visiting my daughter at Florida State. So get ready. Thank you.
Next up is Jim Samuelson, Alzheimer's Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Marion delegation. Today I stand before you as one of the many cases of Alzheimer's here in Marion County and in the state of Florida. Every week I go cycling with one of my best friends who's currently struggling with disease, and I see week to week the impact on him and his family and his cognitive decline. And I was also a franchise owner for Homestead Senior Care. We were a licensed home care agency doing in-home care for Marion County residents. And during the 15 and a half years that I was an owner of that business and that agency, I worked every day with families, individuals, caregivers, and medical professionals that are impacted by Alzheimer's here in our county. And since retiring 2.5 years ago, I've become a really engaged and active volunteer with the association, and I'm currently serving as the 2023 co-chair for the annual Walk and Alzheimer's Year. Florida stands at the epicenter of this terrible disease. In terms of states, we have the second highest prevalence in the country. And a recent Rush University study ranked 6 of our 67 counties in Florida in the top 100 counties in the nation for Alzheimer's prevalence. Over 580,000 Floridians have currently been diagnosed with the disease. And here in Marion County, over 13,300 people have Alzheimer's. Many of you today here, I'm sure, have been impacted and know people that have the disease. So many of you know firsthand what Alzheimer's is all about and what it does to individuals, families. The Alzheimer's Association continues to lead with research. Our goal is to find a cure for the first person that can walk away saying they were cured from Alzheimer's. And we also work closely to support caregivers, families, medical professionals here in our community. In terms of our 2024 legislative priorities, we start with a glimpse of good news. First of all, the FDA recently gave full support for the first treatment that can slow the progression of Alzheimer's. But it can only be used for those in the early stages of Alzheimer's or with cognitive mental impairment. Many people have Alzheimer's, but they're not diagnosed. So it's imperative that we educate our community about the early warning signs of Alzheimer's and the importance of brain health. We need to raise awareness so that families and individuals know what to look for and when they need to go to a doctor to discuss screening. We are advocating for funding for a public health awareness campaign that utilizes multiple different media platforms and focuses on those from underserved communities. Secondly, the legislature recently created a Persons with Disabilities Registry for use by law enforcement. This is a great first step. We want to ensure that law enforcement has the resources they need to understand how best to work with individuals living with Alzheimer's and other dementias. That's why we're advocating for dementia training to be available for law enforcement people all across the state of Florida. We ask the legislature to continue supporting the funding of programs that have proven track record in research, care, and services for those in need. And this includes the Alzheimer's Association Brain Bus, the Ed and Ethel Moore Alzheimer's Disease Research Program, and respite through the Alzheimer's Disease Initiative for Community Care for the Elderly through the Department of Elder Affairs. So on behalf of the Alzheimer's Association, I thank you for this opportunity. Mark, October 14th, we're having our walk to end Alzheimer's at WEC. You're all invited to attend, and you can come to our walk and go to the Macintosh Festival. There'll be plenty of time.
Next is Lane Shirley, Executive Director of the Nancy Rehart Center for Dementia Education, Hospice of Marion County.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, and thank you for your time today. I would like to talk about the Nancy Reinhardt Center for Dementia Education, a program of hospice in Marion County, and the impact that the center has had on the community, healthcare professionals, first responders, and caregivers since its inception 2.5 years ago. I'd like to talk first about the community impact. The Nancy Reinhardt Center for Dementia Education led the initiative to have Ocala and Marion County become a certified dementia-friendly community. The center is honored to be part of Marion Senior Services, her response team. The team consists of 18 community agencies who are tasked with reducing non-urgent 911 calls from the county's highest volume users of the 911 emergency system. Our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Mary Lasada, and DJ Ryan, Alzheimer's and Dementia Education RN, visit these frequent 911 clients with the first responders. To date, Dr. Lasada and DJ Ryan have been consulted over 200 times, and they have saved Marion County taxpayers approximately $100,000. The numbers. The Nancy Reinhardt Center for Dementia Education focuses on providing dementia education to family caregivers, healthcare professionals, and first responders. To date, the center has held 300 events, and my little team of myself and DJ Ryan have provided some form of dementia education here in Marion County to 5,549 people in the past 2.5 years. That is something I'm extremely proud of. U.S. Congresswoman Pat Kammack recently went through the virtual dementia tour at our office a few weeks ago, giving her a better understanding of the challenges and struggles individuals living with dementia face on a daily basis. One of our goals for next year is to implement a Hispanic dementia program, because there are 14% of our neighbors here in Marion County who speak Spanish, and we are not meeting their dementia education needs. The goal, we have a pretty lofty goal here. The goal, I'm proud to announce publicly, is to repurpose Estelle's Hospice House as the site for the Nancy Reinhardt Center for Dementia Education. The center will include a caregiver skills lab, an adult and a children's daycare center, a memory cafe, an education center, as well as a dementia supportive care program. To the best of my knowledge, the Nancy Reinhardt Center will be the second such facility in the country. The plan. We will be working with the state on identifying the regulations needed for the adult child daycare center. We will be working with an architectural and engineering firm to establish funding needs. Last year, Representative McLean sponsored our appropriations funding request, so I'm going to ask that he do that again. I should note that we own the Estelle's Hospice House as well as the land. The estimated value is $1.5 million. Having said that, we plan on submitting an appropriations funding request in the amount of $1.5 million for the plans and renovations, as well as the equipment needed for the adult and children's daycare center. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Next up is Carly McQueen, National Alliance of Mental Health Wellness, Marion County.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time. I actually wear two hats. I'm the board president for the National Alliance on Mental Illness in Marion County, and I'm chief compliance officer with Heart of Florida Health Center. And today I get to put these two together because I'm going to talk to you about integrated primary care and behavioral health.
It doesn't take any time.
I will tell you that our constituents said that 32% said substance disorders. So we know that behavioral health is a concern to our residents. We also know that about 42% of respondents said that it was very difficult to get behavioral health services. And we know, nationally speaking, about 2/3 of people with a behavioral health disorder do not get the treatment they need. The bright spot here is that 4 out of 5 of people with a behavioral health disorder will go see a primary care doctor or pediatrician in the course of a year, and that is your opportunity for an access point. What I'm going to tell you firsthand, working at Heart of Florida, I've seen it work. If the doctor gives somebody a referral to go to the mental health center or for substance abuse treatment, nationally, the data will tell you about half those people will never follow through with that referral. You don't want to go across town. You don't want to car in front of the mental health center. You don't want to tell your story to another person. But firsthand, I know when the doctor says, hey, you've been under a lot of stress. We've got a specialist on our care team who can help you with that. They will walk down that hall and they will talk. They will get the help that they need. At Heart of Florida, in the last year, we have served over 2,500 people with psychiatric care and counseling. So it works, it is a fantastic access point, and we don't even need more money. All we need is some help with some of the regulations and the bureaucratic barriers. For instance, we need to have reimbursement for primary care doctors to do behavioral health screenings. We need a bundled reimbursement rate, so if they see that doctor and that mental health professional on the same day, it can be paid as one visit, but with enough compensation that the doctor does not lose money. We also would like to have streamlined ability to get on panels. It takes a lot of repetitive, administrative BS to go through getting on ACA as a Medicaid provider and then on each of the managed Medicaid panels. We'd like to streamline that and incentivize our primary care doctors. And you see that the work they're doing with integrated care is reducing hospitalizations and increasing people's access to care. I will see you all at Behavioral Health Days up in Tallahassee, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Robin Lanier, Stewart Washington Healthcare of Marion County.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you to see you.
Hey, I am not Robin Lanier, as you can tell. I am Ivan Cosimi. I'm the CEO of SMA Healthcare.
I was like,
Yeah, facial hair. Yeah, it's great to see you guys. SMA is a comprehensive behavioral health care provider offering services not only in Marion County, but in 6 surrounding counties in the Central Florida region. You may have heard a little bit about our organization. We acquired services here previously rendered by the centers a little over 2.5 years ago. Since acquiring these services, we've been working really hard to rebuild the organization's culture and the services in an effort to provide a quality service that the organization and the community can be very proud of. We made some tremendous strides. Some of the progress can be attributed to you all in this past year. Thanks to your support, we're in the process of receiving Central Receiving System status, which basically will assist our efforts in becoming a one-stop shop for behavioral health. Somebody dealing with either a substance abuse or a mental health crisis. On our 60th Avenue campus, we'll have a one-stop shop there. We're also very, very thankful for the capital investment that we're about to be making in the next 6 months to bring that facility up to a standard that everybody in the county can be proud of. We're excited about the future of the campus. Having that one-stop shop is really going to mean a lot. But beyond that, I did want to share some of the successes that we've had over the last couple of years. We've brought a new women's 24-bed residential treatment center to that campus. We acquired 10 detox beds for substance abuse. 7 residential beds for substance abuse at the Beacon Point campus. And we've also started a peer program that's going to meet patients in the emergency rooms and get them connected to care. Those increases and other expansions helped us to serve over 10,500 clients this year. Very excited about that. And it could not have been accomplished without the support of Lutheran Services of Florida, the Marion County Hospital District, the hospital district, the county here also. And as we get ready to embark on this next legislative session, I want to thank you in advance for helping us to do some more infrastructure investment in that campus to really bring it to a world-class speed. So I see that red light, so I'm going to stop. But I want to thank you. I usually get the chance to come up to Tallahassee. I get this garnet and gold rash, though, at times that really doesn't get solved without the sun and some blue water. So, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next is Erica Skula, CEO of Advent Health. Did I say that one?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, honorable members of Marion County Delegation. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, representing nearly 2,000 dedicated health care professionals at Advent Health Ocala. I've been the president and CEO of Advent Health Ocala since May 1 of this year. Very pleased to be here in Ocala. Love this county and this city. Prior to that, I was a CEO for over 20 years. Prior to that, with Tampa, and prior to that, in Manchester, Kentucky. First, I want to thank you and the Florida Legislature for passage of the House Bill 825. The legislation enhanced the penalties for violence against our healthcare workers. Our hospital personnel deserve to be safe, and we thank you for supporting these efforts. Advent Health Ocala is a 385-bed full-service community hospital that opened in 1898. August of 2018 is when Advent Health Ocala became part of the Advent Health Network, a faith-based organization with the mission to extend the kingdom of Christ. Since this time, we have worked hard on our commitment to elevate the quality of care for our community. When we acquired this hospital, we were a D-rated Leapfrog hospital. The Leapfrog Group is a national nonprofit organization that upholds the standard of patient safety in hospitals. This grade is based on over 30 national performance measures reflecting errors, accidents, injuries, and infections, as well as systems hospitals have in place to prevent harm. I'm proud to share that we were recently rewarded an A by Leapfrog. This is due to the hard work and dedication of our wonderful team. We've also been recognized with numerous other awards and accolades for delivering high quality care to our community in the services of cardiovascular, robotic surgery, and many more awards. As important as accolades and awards, we are also committed to investing in the people in our community. For example, we have launched Project Search, a program that includes 10 young adults with disabilities on campus for a 9-month internship to learn skills to help them with successful employment. Most of whom we hope can stay on with us as team members. They're working in areas such as food and nutrition and environmental services. As you prepare for the upcoming legislative session, I want to share 2 of Advent Health's advocacy priorities. In the past few years, the healthcare profession has seen a critical disruption in our workforce, especially within the nursing field. We are working hard to help address this. We want to express our appreciation for the legislature's continued investment in the nursing workforce, specifically your support of the line and pipeline funding that we hope will get your support again this year. This is important and needed to provide care for our growing community. Secondly, I ask for the legislature to preserve Medicaid reimbursements to hospitals. The state's Medicaid program allows Advent Health Ocala to provide care to Marion County residents in greatest need. Advent Health Ocala is proud to serve you and your constituents in Marion County. If you have any questions on healthcare locally or in the upcoming legislative session, please reach out to us as a resource. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Dr. Christine Kaufman. Health Assistant.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Payne and esteemed delegation members. My name is Dr. Christine Caulfield. I'm the CEO of LSF Health Systems, your managing entity here in Marion County. We also cover 22 other counties, so we are the second largest managing entity in the state, serving North Central and Northeast Florida. So you may say, what is a managing entity? Well, we are here to serve our constituents that live with mental health and or substance use disorders that are indigent, uninsured, or underinsured. We have our contract with the Department of Children and Families, and we have 75 incredible provider organizations in our network of care. Here in Marion County, you've heard from many of them today. We have SMA, 0 Hour Life. We have Heart of Florida, Meridian, Children's Home Society, Aura Clubhouse, and Ocala Fire Rescue, just to name a few. So I'm very privileged to work with each and every one of these provider organizations, and our mission is, as managing entities, is to provide the funding and the oversight and the fiscal accountability for our network of care. And I'm pleased to tell you that, again, we have wonderful provider organizations that serve this very challenging population. I want to thank you very much. I've been in the field 35 years, and Florida has historically been low on the totem pole, if you will, for funding, but you all have stepped up to the plate, and as a result, we had new funding come in a couple of years ago that was young adults as well as seniors. We've seen the opioid epidemic continue with the fentanyl crisis really out of control. And so with your leadership, you recognize these issues and you provided the funding that we needed to reduce the wait list in our state and to serve our most vulnerable citizens. I want to be here for you. If you have constituents that have behavioral health issues, please reach out to me. I have 2 cell phones, 24/7, and I'll be seeing you in Tallahassee. And again, my sincere gratitude to you for all that you do for us in this great state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Got that right.
Next up is Lily Beer.
I hope she's got waders on and a shovel.
Hi, good afternoon, delegation members. Obviously, yes, I'm not Lily Barron. Unfortunate, she fell ill, so she wasn't able to join us today. So she asked me to stand in her place. So I'm just going to claim with Old Florida Partners. And I first off want to thank all of you for all that you've done for our state this last session. You all do a great job. And I have to also give a shout out to all your staff. They're all great to work with. And I know days like today wouldn't happen without all that they do. So thank you all for all that you've done. So I've met with most of you, or Lily has met with most of you or your staff about possibly establishing a statewide animal abuser database here in Florida. So currently there are 2 states that have an animal abuser database. That's Tennessee and also New York. And currently 7 counties have registries, including Brevard, Hillsborough, Leon, Miami-Dade, Osceola, Pasco, and Volusia counties. So a little bit of that hasn't heard. Back in 2014, there was a girl named Molly, and she was brutally attacked by her owner. And if you look at the handout that we provided you, Molly on there. Anyway, she was adopted by Lily, and then local community members got together and thought that they could do more to help animals like Molly. So in 2016, the Marion County Board of County Commissioners passed Molly's Law, establishing
Guys, you gotta be kidding me.
an animal
I'm not ready to
abuse
come out of my
database,
skin.
and
You
then
have got to be
states that
kidding me.
adopting or working with animals.
An animal abuse database. Are you kidding me?
By informing your
I'm ready to absolutely jump out of my skin. This is unbelievable that these people are asking for this. That is absolutely insane.
Big passion for.
There's more to come. It's everything I can do just to keep my mouth shut in there.
How much of it smells? Is there anything from the washing machine of yours that can't go on the dryer? Yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble.
Oh, boy, gotta do it.
Not much.
You're gonna be in the boat.
That's funny. Next up is Rick here in Bendo from Backcountry Horses.
And I represent Backcountry Horsemen of Florida and also Backcountry Horsemen of Southeastern California. I'm here to request your assistance to support the legislation that would create a designated Florida Equestrian Heritage Network. This network would designate by statute managed through the Department of Environmental Protection and the Office of Ways and Trails, and would have an associated webpage at FCC that houses information on all of the equestrian trails and trailheads. And FCC would develop signage that was duplicated and posted and trailheads for all of the network trails. There is precedent for this, and that there is a state designated Great Florida Birding and Wildlife Trail and the Great Big Bend Historic Saltwater Travel Trail. Florida has many equestrian friendly trails on state, regional, local, and federal public lands, and we thank you so much for that. The Florida Equestrian Trail Network would tie them all together in a way that would promote equestrian tourism, help equestrian.
I was ready to come out of my skin.
And memorialize the.
Oh my God.
Florida's history and enhance appreciation.
I did out.
Florida trail and knowledge of the trails. Currently, if someone would visit, Florida, St. Marion County, and they wanted to know where to ride, they would have to research this to several different sites because there's not one database of where to ride on horse and public land. Statistically speaking, Florida ranks number 3 in the nation for the number of horses and residents, 387.
So she was asking for a statewide database for people who abuse animals. No.
That translates to
No. I had, the fact that she even said that.
The Florida Department of Agriculture reports that horse ownership, equine associations, organizations, tourism,
Okay, guys, I'm going back in here. This is insane shit.
Annual economic impact of Florida. We'd like to boost that number more by promoting equestrian-friendly public trails throughout Florida with this Equestrian Heritage Trails Network. During the 2023 Florida legislative session, the Florida legislature approved $350,000 for this trail project, but it was vetoed by the governor. So we would like to approach it differently in 2024 by having the legislature designate the trail network along with funding, again, of $350,000 for implementation. We thank you for your support on this, and in summary, this project would recognize the importance of horses in the state of Florida, as I look at the horses up there on the road, and it would recognize the importance of horses in Florida's present and future economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Robert Hyatt in the name of Marion County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Marion delegation. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today with you. I'd like to share 3 things that we're working on in the community that I think deserve at least your awareness. One, United Way has funded our local 211 call center information referral. We receive over 20,000 calls a year through that. I think many of your offices may actually use that service to refer constituents. The United Way Board has voted to continue to support 211 through the end of the year with 80,000 up. But we are convening local partners so we can continue the funding of 211 for the entire here as well as into the future. I want to make you aware that you'll hear some conversation and some work that we're doing with local legislators, local government, philanthropists to secure 211 for our future. The second I want to make you aware of, if you look at my Florida Department of Children's Services, my family's website, it talks about that we have 41 accredited shelters in Florida. I hate to inform you, we have 40. Marion County, our shelter has been decertified. And my family is currently operating or managing our shelter. One of the challenges that local law enforcement, state's attorney's office, local not-for-profits have been working through to make sure shelter services continue in Marion County, the state statute requires that to be an accredited shelter, hotline, counselor in domestic violence, you have to have 18 months of track record. Well, if you're trying to start new services in a community, even with existing not-for-profits, it's very hard to meet that statute. The challenge is about $1.2 million comes to the county through federal judicial pass-through dollars for domestic violence. So my request to you is to consider, is there any way that there's emergency funding, is there an emergency waiver, is there a way of addressing the statute so women and children in our community can continue to be served? United Way is currently funding through the Marion County Children's Alliance, Break the Silence. Our funding went to that organization to try to bridge the gap. It doesn't replace $1.2 million. So anything that can be done through the legislature would be extremely helpful. I would encourage, if you want to know more about the challenges of domestic violence in our community, talk to our sheriff, our police chief, our state's attorney's office, our victims advocate. This is one of the most pressing problems facing Marion County today. The other item I want to bring your attention is to thank you. Dr. Bella talked about the importance of early education and education services. Through funding through the University of Central Florida, we have a community partnership school. And last year we received $193,000 from you all to support that community partnership school. If you've not been to College Park Elementary, I would encourage you to come visit to see your dollars at work and the impact you're making in this case. So thank you for your service, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Jabbar Bugs Graham, Goodwill Industries, Suncoast.
Good afternoon, Chair and Delegation of Marion County. My name is Jabbar Bugs Graham with Goodwill Industries Suncoast, and today we're just pretty much providing a community update about the programs and services that we have within our organization. As soon as I graduated college, 10, 15, I think it was years ago, I started working at Goodwill Industries Suncoast, and one of the things that's kept me there is the fact that over the years, throughout my career with Goodwill, I've become a changed man. I went from being a guy that graduated college to a person that has been with Goodwill, that has matured and had the opportunity to receive a ton of training while being within the organization. A part of that piece is our mission, and if you guys choose to accept that mission today, it is transforming lives through lifelong learning and the power of work. And so I have embraced that mission as soon as I came on board. And Derek Arnold, who is our director currently, he actually started a couple months before me. He embraced the mission as well. And I just kind of want to give you guys a little bit of update of what we do internally as an organization. In 2022, we used 88.7% of our funds went back into the programs that we have within our organization. We served 1,711 people. And place those people in jobs, 45,661 people in the community through our programs and services as a whole, and that's for our Goodwill Industries Suncoast that serves the counties of Marion County, all the way down to St. Petersburg, as well as Highlands County, and as well as the 10 counties in total. We have programs that we love, like our childhood literacy, through our bookworks, financial literacy, through our junior achievement, and we also have our Bell in the Ball program, which recently opened, where we had a grand extravaganza event at our Gandy location in St. Petersburg. Last year, we also helped 7,671 people Last year, our economic impact was $64.9 million. Our tax revenue to the state was $3.2 million. We have 21 stores in the 10 counties that we serve, 5 donation centers. And I think one of the greatest things we have right now, when we talk about our donation centers and how we impact the community and how we're reducing items from going into the landfill. Last year, we did 44.7 million pounds diverted from the landfill. So those items that were donated to Goodwill, upcycled and then reused or resold in order to fund our mission, but also taking that away from the landfills as well. A piece of that, I would say, is our new partnership with the solid waste facility in Gibsonton, where we have our donation center set up over there, so donors or people that are dropping off their items are able to donate those items to us at the landfill site, and we hope to, at some point, have the opportunity to do that with you guys as well. Ooh, that's my time. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next, we have up Jay Bailey from Marion County Cultural Alliance.
Good afternoon, delegation. Good to see you. My name is Jay Bailey. I'm the Executive Director of the Marion Cultural Alliance, the lead arts agency for the Ocala Metro. Our mission for the Marion Cultural Alliance is to provide funding and support and training for our artists and for our arts organizations. Today, I'd specifically like to share information about the state of Florida's annual grants for general support for local arts organizations. These grants are managed by the Florida Department of Arts and Culture under the leadership of Secretary Byrd. The process begins throughout the state, the process begins with a rigorous application that requires demonstrating artistic merit, artistic excellence, and cash match, and the organization's capacity to actually execute the grant. The grants are ranked by a panel of peers throughout the state of Florida, and then the ranked grants are recommended to the Florida legislature for funding consideration. I can assure you that through rigorous accountability, that through the rigorous reporting, that the accountability level is very high. So just to give you a snapshot of what's happening throughout the state, we're talking about Marion County grants. This year, for the 2024-2025 request for appropriations, 5 Marion County arts organizations have applied for a total of $445,200. Those organizations are new organization, Arts and Health, the College of Central Florida, the Appleton Museum of Art, the Ocala Symphony Orchestra, the Ocala Civic Theater, and Marion Cultural Alliance. Combining these applicants' match in Marion County, if you combine their match in Marion County, it's 11 times their request. So they're requesting $445,200, and the cash match locally is $4 million. If funded at 100% of the request, the estimated ROI to state and local coffers would be 75%, or in real dollars, $1.2 million. Cumulative, these 5 grants would provide 3,900 opportunities for cultural engagement. Cultural engagement. Also engage over 1,000 Florida artists, employ 365 full-time equivalent jobs, and serve over 80,000 children. 22,000 of those are through their schools. Even though the nonprofits are based in Marion County, they also serve other counties with their programs in Alachua, Citrus, Lake, Levy, Hernando, Putnam, Sumter, and Volusia. In closing, the arts mean business. Florida's arts and cultural industry generates $4.6 billion in economic activity, including $2.9 billion by the nonprofit arts and cultural organizations. This economic activity supports 132,000 plus full-time jobs and generates $3.3 billion in resident household income. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is William Robert, Rainbow River Conservation.
My name is Bill Biddard. I'm here representing Rainbow River Conservation. We've been in business for 60 years protecting the Rainbow River. My topic today is to create a Rainbow River Protection Zone. Which I will have a little presentation that you might have. There are 33 first magnitude springs in the state of Florida. Of these, the Rainbow River retains the best representation of the Florida spring aquatic system. This is due to the high dissolved oxygen and high flow. Visibility in the Rainbow River can reach 200 feet. Large beds of vegetation cover most of the upper river. Otters, alligators, turtles, wading birds, raptors, and the natural landscape of the river corridor delight visitors and residents alike. The Rainbow River is also an economic engine for Marion County, as visitors from across America come to experience the beauty of a Florida spring. The Rainbow River is a globally significant natural resource, with recreation use on the Rainbow River dramatically increasing to approximately 300,000 annual visitors. Finding the sustainable balance between protection and recreation has become a challenge. Shoreline vegetation, critical for wildlife, is being damaged by new beaching vessels. Anchoring in vegetation beds is resulting in large amounts of vegetation being dislodged. I think you might have a photograph in here. Right, this photograph was taken yesterday. These maps get many times this size. After busy weekends, large amounts block sunlight and kill bottom vegetation. Surprisingly, despite numerous designations of significance, including a natural landmark, outstanding forest water, and aquatic reserve, there are few regulations beyond no alcoholic beverages, no disposable containers, and I will speak all Marion County regulations. There are excellent management plans, but they contain no enforceable resource protection or recreation regulations. The aquatic community on the Beachy Watches was virtually destroyed by recreation impacts. Loss of habitat resulted in a loss of wildlife as well. A partnership between Florida DEP, concerned citizens, the Southwest Florida Board of Management, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Mango County, and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC. It was formed to address the recreation impacts that prohibit beaching, mooring, anchoring, and grounding vessels in the spring. The final FWC rule was approved in July 2023. Following the Weeki-Wachee example, to begin the process of creating the Rainbow River Protection Zone, will first require a vessel and shoreline impact study under the supervision of the FWC. The estimated cost for this work will be approximately $250,000. When complete, public meetings will be scheduled and the FWC can begin work during the pool. The 2022 Florida Springs Institute landmark study called the Ecological Health Assessment, Rainbow Springs, Florida, has provided an outstanding resource that can serve as a guide in the rulemaking process. A rule prohibiting the beaching, mooring, anchoring, and grounding of vessels will be a significant step forward in protecting the aquatic community from further damage. Recreation uses including tubing, fishing, kayaking, and snorkeling will not be impacted. The Florida Springs Council, the coalition of springs advocacy groups, strongly supports this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, Art Jones, one rate at a time.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I'm Art Jones. I'm the founder and president of One Rake at a Time, and like we say, one rake at a time. We got into the waters also to physically rake out the Lingvia algae and hydrilla out of Kings Bay, and then down in Homosassa, down in Weeki-Wachee, and now we started a project up at Rainbow River. And I want to thank you so much for your support last year and continuing support coming forward. Yeah, one of the things that is we had hundreds of people come out and help rake the algae and hydrilla out of the river to help the eelgrass so it can grow. One of the things we can't rake out though is muck and silt. You really need vacuum dredging to do that, and as we've proven in the Kings Bay Restoration Project, that works. So it's just expensive, so that's why we're so grateful that you've helped us. And I've got Michelle here, the project manager, and she can hit you with some of the statistics of what's happened in Kings Bay and what we hope to see happen.
Thank you so much for your support this past year. With this money, we're working to permit 25 acres of the most crucial restoration areas, the lower Rainbow River. We know the beautiful upper Rainbow River, but the lower Rainbow is really struggling with invasives. We're spraying them, they die, they follow the bottom, they rot, that muck is getting deeper and deeper. Denellen was also really prime phosphate mining area at the turn of the century, to the 19th century. Those phosphate mining tailings have just been abandoned, so they're eroding into the river. So we're trying to find a comprehensive plan to address all of these issues to ensure that we don't lose the Rainbow River like we just heard about the Weeki-Wachee River. So the Kings Bay project, we saw that after restoration, we saw a 73% increase in biodiversity. So we're hoping we're going to see that same kind of biodiversity increase here in the lower Rainbow, where it's mostly just hydrilla and muck and a lot of invasive species. So by removing all that, removing the muck, taking all that nutrients out of the waterway, so it's millions of pounds of legacy nutrients that are gonna be removed from the water column, and then replanting native plants, and then doing shoreline stabilization where needed, stabilizing those islands that the ducks really rely on for nesting and all the other aquatic birds. We have a really good chance to continue this river restoration. So we're looking to spend the next couple of years restoring that whole 25 acres, and then see what else needs to be done in the upper river that's already in good shape, but maybe we can help it with some additional shoreline stabilization. So with your funding from last year, we're in the process of getting our permits, which is really exciting. Like I said, we're permitting the whole 25 acres. We're restoring 3.5 acres and planting 35,000 native plants with the funding that you gave us. So we hope to continue this on in the next 5 years and really address the whole river before it's lost.
Yeah, and can I just add also, what we saw in Kings Bay was as we planted the eelgrass, and then after a couple of years, it started spreading on its own. Mother Nature kicked in, and now you've got another 300 acres of eelgrass in Kings Bay that we didn't have to plant. Now Mother Nature is. We just needed to give her a good base to get those eelgrass plants going.
Right, and make sure you buy all those rotarians a rake so you get their help.
Oh, they've been there. They have been there. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Next up is Kim Deacons, Unite the River Coalition.
Good afternoon. Thanks for allowing me to speak here today. My name is Kim Dinkins, and I represent the Reunite the Rivers Coalition, which is comprised of more than 60 community organizations, environmental groups, churches, and businesses. Although this is a regional effort for the entire 217-mile system, I'm also a Marion County resident, so this issue is significant for me and my family. The goal of the coalition is to see the natural flow of the Silver and Ocklawaha rivers to the St. Johns River and its lower reach restored. I'm here to ask you to act on the state's existing plan that has been in place for more than 2 decades to remove the lock and dam at Broadman Reservoir and restore the river along with more than 7,500 acres of forested wetlands and 20 springs that are currently drowned under its waters. The system serves no public purpose, never has. It creates a flood hazard rather than protection, hinders biodiversity rather than enhancing it, and it serves a user group that represents less than 10% of the $25 billion per year economic contribution of the outdoor fishing and recreational sector in the state. Our approach contemplates diverse recreational opportunities, and we encourage implementing a plan that includes upgrades and provisions for recreational infrastructure to support various user groups as part of the restoration process. We are more concerned than ever about the people living downstream of the dam whose lives and property are at risk if the dam were to fail, and about long-term water quality degradation due to a vegetation management strategy that appears to rely solely on frequent and extensive herbicide use. In just over a year, there have been 4 confirmed manatee deaths attributed specifically to the structures that hold back more than 150 million gallons per day of clearer, fresher water to the St. Johns River and estuary, which is experiencing unprecedented submerged vegetation loss. The status quo is no longer a viable or economically prudent option. It's time to bring back the lost fish of the Ocklawaha, allow uninhibited access for manatees to essential warm water habitat, provide safe refuge for our native upland species like Osceola turkeys, Florida black bears, and panthers, and this exceptional section of the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and envision a more robust and diverse economy for communities like Silver Springs, Palatka, and Palatka. Public support for restoration is high, with more than 75% of people told in Marion and Putnam counties expressing a desire for a free-flowing river. Record funding is available at federal and state levels, and the time to act is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Jane West, 1,000 Frozen Floor.
On the next one, Haley Bush. So
Okay.
Jane is not able to be here today. Thank you. Good afternoon, delegation members, and welcome up to Berlin. My name is Haley Bush, I'm Outreach Director for 1,000 Friends of Florida. We provided you all with our legislative priorities front and back. I'm happy to provide those with you after this as well. So since the 1980s, we've advocated for responsible growth and real estate development to create fiscally sound, responsible communities while protecting our lands and waters. And this balance between promoting growth and accommodating all of the visitors and new residents to Florida with conserving our lands and waters, it's a challenge, right? It's been the challenge for Florida for decades. It's a constant push and pull that our organization has been monitoring. However, we've seen local governments step in and manage growth through smart land use planning. One such example is Marion County's rural preservation area, where residents here recognize the contribution of agricultural and equestrian lands to the region's local economy and quality of life. Other counties across the state have also adopted similar urban growth boundaries or rural protection areas to manage growth around the state. To continue encouraging good growth management strategies, we're making several policy and funding requests for the 2024 session. We're asking the legislature to provide at least $1 billion for Florida Forever, rural and family lands, the Florida Communities Trust, and other land acquisition programs to continue the work done over the last few years protecting the wildlife corridor. So that number may seem really big, but you all came pretty close last year to $1 billion for total conservation spending across these programs, and we want to see that momentum continue this legislative session. As for policy priorities, we ask you to respect local authority and continue to allow government closest to the people to dictate land use and growth management laws. Each community is different. We live in a very diverse state. And as an example, an affordable housing policy in one city, a built-out urban city like my county, Pinellas County, may mean something very different affordable housing-wise in another community in rural parts of the state inland as well. Another example, rainfall patterns and soil conditions in one area may need a very specific local fertilizer ordinance that might not work in another part of the state. We want to see continued work on water quality protection and restoration. That Springs Protection Zone for the Rainbow River mentioned a few minutes ago is a great example of that. We're also in favor of restoring the flow of the Ocklawaha River. So that's one of our priorities and has been on our list for a few years now as well. Protecting Florida's future and quality of life means hard decisions and compromise from all industries and stakeholder groups. We recognize that and are asking you to consider how short-term decisions to develop land today can forever change the landscape. If you have any questions or would like to discuss any of our priorities, happy to provide my contact information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Jackie Dunn, Data Forward Change Team.
Thank you for letting me speak with you today. As you said, Jackie Dunn is the founder of Data for Change, which is a nonprofit advocacy for criminal justice reform for the 86,000 humans that we have in our prisons. Just like Chief Falcon said earlier, we are broken as a system from all angles. Florida has the third largest prison population in the United States. Parole was abolished in 1983, and we have 25% of the entire nation's life without parole population. More than 30 other states combined, 14,000 people. I can stand here and say as a conservative Christian woman that I'm saddened by our eagerness to excessively imprison thousands of people that we're merely mad at and not afraid of. The current budget is $3.3 billion, not including what we subsidized the last 2 years for the National Guard to cover the vacancy issues within the FTC. A young, healthy individual costs us taxpayers $28,000 annually. That figure triples at the age of 50. 30% of our 86,000 men and women are over the age of 50 in our prisons. Hope, purpose, and opportunity are what we need to restore the incarcerated. Incentive for these men and women to grow is a must. As our law enforcement can attest, thousands are released worse than how they came in, with the exception of a rare few that just happen to have the appetite to be better. In the next 5 years alone, 45,000 men and women will be released into society as returning citizens, and 44% of them will still not have a GED. Education is what gets them in there. The lack of education is what gets them in there in the first place, and it's what brings them back. Currently, the incarcerated can reach the maximum sentence reduction that they have available to them is 15%. They can reach that simply by behaving at halfway through their sentence. For instance, K31479 has a 19-year sentence for DUI manslaughter at the age of 20 as a first-time offender, 100% behind prison walls. He'll reach his maximum gain time in year 8 and have 2,695 days left of hopeless incarceration. He happens to also be my son, Luke. They should have the ability to earn time off their sentence, and the key word is earn. We've got to change things, and we've got to change them now for all of our sakes, and especially for the law enforcement of our communities. Thank you so much. I'll see you in Tallahassee.
Thank you. Kate Parker, Florida Jeff, Dignity.
Hi, hello, so sorry. Hello, Mr. Chairman and the Marion County delegation. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm here with Annie Roberts, who is, she's a resident of the Villagers, and we're here to support Florida Deaths with Dignity. And I'm gonna let Annie talk first. She has a moving personal story she'd like to share with you, and then I'll wind things up. Thank you.
I stand before you to share my personal story of comforting and caring for my beloved cousin during her final days in hospice. Her story is not unique. There are thousands of people suffering needlessly because the law in Florida does not allow for end-of-life medication that will permit them to have some control over their own death. After a great battle against her ovarian cancer, it was determined that there was nothing else that could be done except keep Ruth as comfortable as possible. Ruth accepted the fact that her death was near. Her only wish was to die pain-free. She had many days of severe pain before she passed. After several days, Ruth was given an end-of-life option that is available in Florida. The option to refuse both food and water. In other words, to starve and dehydrate herself to death. After 5 days of no food or water, Ruth's organs began to shut down. The pain of organs shutting down was excruciating, much greater than the pain from the cancer itself. And she was never given enough medication to put her at a comfortable level. After 11 days, she died, finally at peace. I was traumatized by this experience. I've had nightmares for a full year. When I think about it, which I do often, I still cry because she had to suffer needlessly. She asked me to be her voice when she was no longer able to communicate her wishes, and I failed her. This will be a burden that I will carry for the rest of my life. Ruth's slow death was inhumane and unnecessary. I implore you, please support a bill that would allow us and our loved ones to have a safe, pain-free way to leave this world without undue suffering. Thank you.
Florida Deaths with Dignity has a bill that will be presented by Representative Daryl Campbell in this next session. It's called Medical Aid in Dying, or End-of-Life Options for Florida. And more than 10 states have already legalized and regulated, successfully regulated a medical aid in dying option for their citizens. These states have protected patient autonomy and safety. And in the decades since Death with Dignity was first legalized, the law has not been struck down or significantly altered, proving its safety and legal efficacy. Death with Dignity option has broad support across political lines. This is a deeply human issue, and too many Floridians suffer because they do not have this Death with Dignity option. We understand and respect those personal beliefs, that those with personal beliefs that would not support this use of medical aid in dying. However, we also believe in the medical freedom and bodily autonomy. People who are actively dying should have the right to choose their end-of-life care. Okay, people who are, simply put, medical aid in dying does not result in more people dying. It simply results in fewer people suffering. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bridget Smith, Chair, Republican Executive Committee, Digital Currency. You can do either one. Either one wants to jog back and forth.
I want to thank you all
for being here. I want to say that we love Marion County, and we support each and every one of you. And everybody back here in red shirts is from your RAC, here to support you. And we want to do what we can do to help you with Tallahassee, support your legislation, because we do love it here in Marion County. And they're all right there. Wave your hand, everybody. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So, I thought over and over again what to say today. Would it be thoughts of education and how parents and grandparents are domestic terrorists and the failures of public education? Or would it be the federal mandates that usurp any and all individual rights? What could I possibly say today that could change things? Bills for this session have already been predetermined. Would it be about judicial system and weaponization of each three-letter agency? We have attorney generals being impeached. Would it be about digital currency? Would it be about the administrative rules of the ATF or the World Economic Forum that would relinquish our emergency powers to the globalists of the World Economic Forum? Each state finds itself walking a tightrope through the overlapping jurisdictions between federal and state governments. Citizens' rights are often forgotten. The United Nations has recently governed us by implications when it declared that COVID-19 was a pandemic. The trend is for federal government to expand and to assume more powers. Whose laws do we follow? The state, Congress, the CDC, some other federal agency, perhaps an agency of a state, like the health department, or even the United Nations? So, what I'm here today is to ask for a Florida law that preempts certain federal laws or regulations. And we'll be happy to come to different offices and meet you all and discuss this idea of a preemption for Florida, which basically says that the federal government shall only operate under powers enumerated in the Constitution, and that we could serve as the 10th Amendment for our law. So we'll be happy to meet you all later on. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Diana Williams, Chair, Democratic Executive Committee. Welcome.
My name is Diana Williams. I'm Chair of the Marion County DEC. I'm glad to be here today to observe the democratic process in action. I want to thank all of you for your service to our wonderful community. Just this week, we were notified of new education funding, and I hope you continue to pay today for adequate pay for our law enforcement, our firefighters, and teachers so that we can attract and retain these critical employees. My grandkids are getting old enough to attend school, and they should be provided the same great education my 4 kids got right here in Marion County. I'm so proud of the critical thinking skills that they learned. It is serving them well in their careers. It's those critical thinking skills that I hope you use in your job as well, listening to alternative points of view and mastering the art of compromise. Reach outside your personal center of influence. Think of ways to solve the root of a problem instead of legislating and re-legislating the outcomes of a problem. I remember some great words from my father-in-law, Lieutenant Governor Jim Williams, may he rest in peace. He was a senator in the 60s and lieutenant governor in the 70s. I remember him saying, "It's only a good deal if both sides think it's a good deal." That is when you have mastered your craft of being a great legislator. And I know that that's a place where you all excel to be. The goal is for everyone to live a better life. Please represent all your constituents in their decisions. Thank you.
Next up is Sabrina Davis, wrongful death act.
Thank you, good afternoon. Most of you guys know my story up here, and I'm just gonna briefly share it. My dad, Keith Davis, 62-year-old veteran of the United States Navy. He went to a hospital for knee pain in the Tampa area, and he died 5 days later of a 9-inch-long blood clot. The Florida Department of Health found that the doctor worked below the standard of care and committed medical malpractice in my father's death. Because of Florida statute 768.21 subsection 8, it states that if you are not single, or if you are single, divorced, or widowed, and you have no minor child, no one can pursue the person at fault in cases of medical malpractice. My dad was single and I'm over the age of 25.
as most of you know. The opposition speaks of sadness, not negligence, and they do this to create a false narrative. This law was created 33 years ago to address a so-called crisis on medical malpractice rates. However, the opposition still argues today that the so-called crisis still exists. If this is true, then not only did the legislator's 1990 remedy fail to accomplish its intended goal, it also created a cascade of unintended consequences being taken away, including my access to court. It is time the legislator turn its focus back to protecting the people's rights. My dad's case, where medical malpractice was proven and confirmed, resulted in a $7,500 fine to this doctor. What did this help? By raising the standard of care when it comes to healthcare workers, which I am one myself, they would be motivated to do better at their job, unlike the doctor that killed my father, who's still practicing today at 79 years old. I want to read an analysis from Rep. Roach's bill, and it states that the legislator reasoned that by protecting medical providers from increased malpractice suit exposure and escalating liability insurance rates, it would encourage more physicians to practice in the state and lower the cost of healthcare by reducing medical malpractice premiums. I want to say that Florida is so much better than this. And this creates a very false narrative at the expense of the people's life. My dad was in the Navy, and he defended the Constitution, and he fought to protect our freedom. He traveled the depths of the ocean and made it back home alive. And when he went to a hospital for knee pain and died of medical malpractice, and my rights to access the civil courts have been taken away, this is not what he fought for. And this is why I am here today. And I encourage you all to revisit this subject and help find a fair solution. I want to thank Rep. Hinton for bringing part of the bill in 2022. I want to thank Rep. Payne and Rep. McLean for changing your vote from a no to a yes. I want to thank Senator Perry for co-sponsoring this bill in the Senate. And I have to tell you, my son has told all his friends you have the best snacks in the Capitol, so get prepared. For your office and ransacked by a bunch of 10-year-olds, probably my son. And Rep. Chamberlain, I'd be honored to speak with you. I don't know if you're familiar with this law, and if anyone has any ideas as far as language for this bill, it's very bipartisan supported. There is both a Democrat and a Republican House rep who are looking to bring language and can use some helpful advice on how we can get this heard in the Senate. It's already passed the House, there's no problem there. I encourage anyone to reach out to me. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Davis. Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Payne and the Marion delegation. My name is Douglas Cantella. I live in Ocala, and being a homeowner, as many of us are, and receive our homeowners' bills, I guess we've all seen the bill increase recently, and that is my concern for this agenda going forward, coming in the 2024 legislative session, is your continued support to address Florida homeowners insurance rates, which has continued to increase. And I know it is at length, it can be as high as 50 to 60%, which is not reasonable, especially given our geographic location as opposed to those closer to the Gulf or to the ocean on the East Coast, either the West or East. I support your legislation recently passed, but we still need to champion efforts by addressing the root causes from these insurance companies and claims and people. We need to fight against and pass laws to penalize those people who are committing fraud, investigating roofing contractors and public adjusters accountable. As Florida homeowners look at bills with increases of 50 to 60% is not reasonable. We need to keep Florida insurance market competitive and keep insurance companies in Florida. Thank you for your recent legislation in 2023, Senate Bill 154, House Bill 799, House Bill 837, and House Bill 881, House Bill 1185. Again, thank you for your support and look forward to the members passing great bills in 2024 to keep Florida great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Sherry Alley, Development of Regional Impact Program in Florida.
Thank you very much for being here.
Other than a large development in southwest Ocala called Oak Run, about 6,500 people live in Oak Run. That development began in 1984, almost 40 years ago. The community was built out by early 2000s in 2007. The developer obtained something called a Development of Regional Impact status in the early 1980s and has retained that status to this day. Florida Statute 380.06 governs the DRI. Very significantly, the DRI is also addressed in Florida Statute 720.307 subparagraph 5, where it actually provides an exemption from the required transition of homeowners associations. They're exempt if they are a DRI, as long as they are a DRI. So had the DRI terminated at the originally scheduled timeframe in the early 2000s, which was that build out, the developer would have been required to transition their ownership in accordance with Florida's law. But the developer continued to get extensions to that DRI for decades. In conversations with Chris Rising in the Marion County Planning and Zoning Office, I was advised to write to the state and request strengthened language in the statute to prevent this very scenario where that status is used to allow the developer to evade the transition of ownership to the residents in accordance with Florida law. So in March 23, I did submit a letter to the AG regarding the homeowners and DRI, as well as abuse of seniors and fraud related. We have some bigger issues besides just DRI. The AG office has that and is forwarded to the DPPR. I also contacted Representative Henson, who I thank very much for her understanding on this and her letter to the Joint Legislative Audit Group to help resolve some serious issues. The solution, I think, is very simple. Delete that subparagraph 5, because it's just one long sentence, and that is the sentence in the transition that says you are exempt from the transition. That one paragraph going away would solve the problem, would allow the DRI process to remain as it is. It's an important program. Oak Run residents deserve to have what Florida law wants for residents in big communities like ours. I'm seeing my time is up. So anyway, I urge you to help us amend that statute and ensure that this travesty cannot happen in other communities, such as it has in ours. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Ann Solomon from Justice Reform.
There's so many ways to pronounce my last name. You did it beautifully, thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to see you all this afternoon. So before 2020, our family, 3 generations, believed in prison and throw away the key. Then my son was incarcerated and we became non-90. Florida over-relies on incarceration for punishment. This is a non-partisan problem. And I agree with the Ocala Chief of Police that our criminal justice system is broken and needs some repair. 41% of Floridians have been incarcerated or have loved ones who've been incarcerated. This is 9 million people. These are people of all ethnicities, poor and wealthy, old and young. Since the 1980s, our prison population has increased by 400%, while our state's population has increased by 228%. What has this accomplished? Extreme poverty, homelessness, generational trauma, severed families. 2/3 of our children are on Medicaid. 1/3 of our veterans have been incarcerated. while the U.S. culture is one of second chances that is generally not consistent for those who are labeled criminals or felons. Paradoxically, we are most cruel to those that are least likely to reoffend. Murder carries a 0.2% likelihood of committing another murder. Sex offenses are 0.8% likely of committing another sex offense. That's less than 1%. Many sex offenders are living with no job, no home, enduring cruel ostracization. Let me just move on since we're on the yellow light. As of 2023, thousands of offenses are now punished by incarceration in Florida. This year alone, 14 bills created new reasons to imprison our people for longer periods of time. When your children or your dogs make terrible choices, do you put them in a cage with cruelty? What happens when you would treat your employees or friends harshly? What does cruelty solve? For the call to action, please stop accepting to sponsor or to vote for bills that put more Floridians in prison or sentencing them to longer terms. Please recognize the causes and consequences of our willingness to destroy human lives. Vote no for bills that create new reasons for putting people in prison or increasing their sentences. This action will need your strength. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have, I see Linda Etheridge and 6 other people, 5 other people speaking on the same Department of Corrections reform, so just please don't repeat your previous speaker's comments. Linda Etheridge, Department of Corrections reform. Kim White. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I know it's late. I'm Kim White. I am here to speak about Florida Department of Corrections. Our Florida state prisons are understaffed, overcrowded, and have inhumane conditions. And we as taxpayers pay exorbitantly to imprison the 3rd highest population in the country. And I agree with the chief of police from Ocala, something needs to change because what we are doing is not working. Since 1983, Florida has not offered parole. We offer 15% game time. Almost every year, there is a game rehabilitation / good time bill that to encourage good behavior so people can earn more time off their sentence. But every year, nothing happens. And we need to find a way to let the people we are just merely mad at out of prison. I am here to offer some solutions for your consideration. We need to implement some kind of game time, good time rehabilitation bill to let people out and earn their way out of prison. They don't have a lot of programs. We're trying to implement more from last session, but that has not happened. So I want to offer some solutions like Virginia has, like us, stopped offering parole in 1983. But they now in 2020 offered a way for people to earn up to 50% off their sentence by doing programs and such. Also, for, I see I'm yellow. Georgia instituted something in 2020 or 2013, and they have had steady decrease of crime and low recidivism. So we need to do something like that. There are other states that have done that, and I would like to take this session to move forward with ours since we are so overcrowded. In 2019, our Office of Economic and Demographic Research estimated we would save $860 million over 5 years if we would lower the game time from 85% to 65%. We need to do something, because I'm sure that number has increased since 2019. So I also want to say, I know I'm red, my son, P81225, will make his game time in 8 years. He also is serving for DUI manslaughter. 15 years. And he works, he helps other people get their GED, but they offer them nothing for doing good in prison. Sorry. We need a different approach in our prison system. There are too many good people in there that we are paying so much money to imprison for longer than they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Connie Edson? I just mentioned to Senator Perry, he may follow up and comment when you're all done, because he's been a real advocate for that, so he's been a strong advocate at the city side.
Senator Perry is the first person that I started this whole thing. Just a little bit about myself. 3 years ago, when my daughter graduated from USF as an American Sign Language interpreter, and things happened, you have a car accident, oh well. But when she called me and said that there was no air conditioning, I just was like, what? Anyway, long story short, for 3 years, I first started with Senator Perry and Rep. Hart, and then my angel was Rep. Hinson, because for 3 years, I've been trying to find a viable solution, which actually has been, because of Rep. Hinson, presented to Secretary Dixon and the Department of Corrections, and an actual pilot program is going on right now here in Ocala at Lowell Correctional Institution. With that being said, the program is for the newer facilities as well as the older facilities. The newer facilities already have the air ducts and, you know, all the vents, but they weren't retrofitted with air conditioners and air handlers. So all we have to do is buy those to put for the newer facilities, and boom, we have air conditioning, which they did. I just found that at Lottie CI. They fixed the roof, and they already had the air ducts and air vents in place, and boom, they have the air conditioners on top. I passed around a pamphlet. This is the new company that I brought into Lowell. Hess Air. Their company is all about no one should be in this day and age without air conditioning. The CEO is working with me diligently because they want to start this pilot program in other facilities, not just at Lowell. We're reaching out to Tomoka, some of the incentivized prisons, to have this company not donate or give to you, but let them use it for a couple months to see if it works in this facility. You know, it's working at Lowell, let's move it along. Our heat index is getting well over 110 degrees. We are 4,000 correctional officers short. Now this year, Rep. Chamberlain, you're new, but we have an annual inmate trust fund. And this fund is made up solely from the inmates and their families. Now the dime is from taxpayers' money. So it accumulates about $40 million. This year, advocates worked really diligently, and we got close to $28 million funded to the Department of Corrections. However, it went for programs and things like that. Not a dime was, allocated for air conditioning. So, you have to wonder, who would want to work, I'm sorry to say, in an unair-conditioned facility? Who would want to volunteer? So we have all this money allocated for programs, like 28 million. However, it's going to sit, and it's just going to sit there to the end, and it goes back into the general fund. Because unless we get correctional officers to come in and oversee these programs, the money is a moot point. So originally, I kind of wanted to take the money from Peter to pay Paul, take it out of that money for the programs, and fund this AC program. We know what's working, we can move it along, we have to get the roofs fixed so we can put the air conditioners on top, but we need funding from legislation. And, I talk to the Department of Corrections periodically, and there's just not enough funding. They're trying to work diligently. We have a solution. It's not a permanent one, but it's something that we can help everyone now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tricia Scott. Judy Haston. Corrections.
I'm looking at this, and percentage-wise, we have a lot of people here for correction reform. That tells us we have a problem, and we have to also solution for there not being
implemented. I wanted to just tell you a couple of little incidents. Jesse is incarcerated in the Florida prison. He doesn't have any family, and he doesn't have anyone to send him money. He has no one to advocate for him. He has daily prescription medication that has been prescribed to him by a doctor. And then one day, the prescription wasn't there, the medication wasn't there. And the next day it wasn't there. On the third day, he talked to the guard and he asked about where his medicine was, but he didn't get any results. So the next thing he has to do is file a grievance report, which he did, and then nothing happened. 10 days later, he still was not getting his medication. He reached out for an advocacy group who was able to call the warden and able to get the problem resolved. There's another person, his name is Kenny. He's in a wheelchair, and the screw came out of one of the wheels of his chair, and he could not use his wheelchair. And so he was stuck. Other people in there helped him, other inmates helped him, but yeah, he reported it to the guard, and nothing happened. Same story. Finally, he reached out to an advocacy group, able to call the warden, able to get his wheelchair fixed. So I'm not here to blame any guards, I'm not here to blame any staff or warden, but what I am here telling you that we need this advocacy group to work with the Department of Corrections. Last year, Representative Valdez and Senator Powell sponsored a bill to help with oversight and general improvements of the prison condition, but that bill was not passed. And in 2021, a similar bill was presented but not passed. And all this is doing is asking for a Citizens Collaborative Council to meet with the Department of Corrections, people from the House, people from the Senate, people from the public, the general public, 5 or 6 members. They serve a 4-year term, and they discuss what's going on. It's a already sort of kind of informally used, but we need to have legislative action for that. So I'm hoping that when me and my friends come up to Tallahassee or visit this office to talk about support on this bill, that you would consider that this is something that is needed.
Thank you, Seth. Christy Lacey, being Department of Corrections. I will put you on the spot. You've worked on this issue for years.
I have, and I want to thank you for your advocacy and your patience and perseverance. I know it's tough. You keep coming out and don't have a lot of reform. But I can tell my colleagues, one of the things we've looked at, my staff, and we've looked at these things, and the way I frame this and look at it is this is a public safety issue. With tens of thousands of people being released every year, the question becomes, are they better off or worse off? Are they more likely to commit a crime upon release or less likely to commit crime on release? And if we don't do anything to incentivize the behavior behind when we're locked up, Aristotle said, we repeatedly do, therefore action is not an act, but a habit. And if we don't create an area inside of a prison where there are habits of work ethic and all these other things are taking place, then don't expect them to be released from prison with no skills, no work ethic, and be a member of society that we would hope they would be. So this is really, there's a fiscal side to it, there's a moral side to it, but there's really a public safety. The recidivism rates in a 3-year period, especially people who have a drug background, are around 50%. So what that means when they recidivate, not only are we going to find the criminal justice system, but what we are is people are victims of crime. And so what we need to do is make sure we do everything we can to make that less. And we've seen in other states, and thank you for your data, that when programs are happening in gain time, not earned time, not given time, earn it. And then we have better results when we get out, we can better protection for everybody out there. So thanks for what you do. I know it's tough. Like this is, we're part-time legislators with very limited time and a lot on our plate. So don't be frustrated. Well, you can get frustrated, that's fine. Be normal. But just keep working, and I'm looking forward to the next session working with you and with my colleagues.
Good, thank you, Senator. Well said. Bob Schmidt, HB 17, expiration of mandatory waiting period for firearm purchases.
HB 17, correct. Good afternoon, my name is Bob Schmidt, and I'm here representing myself, and I'm not asking for any money, okay? Part of what I'm going to say.
Stole my line, I was gonna use that.
Part will be difficult. I'm using it as an example. And then part will be the ask, the challenge. First, I want to thank you for this year's legislative work in education that allows every parent to be in charge of their students' choice of education. Well done. This was a win for parents, students, and education. It is important that we continue to be vigilant to keep radical ideology out of public education. I also want to thank the legislature for appropriating the largest budget in Florida public education ever. Thank you. Now it is time for the public schools to show they are good stewards of that money that you have appropriated. We listen to the school board and the administrators attribute poor performance on parents, COVID, and unfunded mandates. I can't talk about parents or COVID, that's a longer discussion, but one mandate I can talk about, and we'll call out today, is the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act. It is an example of how common sense legislation without guardrails facilitates administrative requirements creep. The legislation does not tell school systems to grow an armed police force. What it does require is each district school board and school district superintendent cooperate with law enforcement agencies to assign one or more safe schools officers at each school facility. Once again, I do support HB 17, Dr. Rudman's HB 17. But creating an organic police force is both expensive and a needless activity for the school districts when you have incredibly capable law enforcement in our counties. Reading through the legislation, I'm not sure creating a school police force was the intent of that legislation. But thorough requirements creep will allow it to happen. I propose to the department, now here's the proposal. I propose the Department of Education set up a task force whose sole purpose is to assess not just the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, but all educational legislation and quantify legislative intent with cost and performance metrics. Make sure that the taxpayers' money that you've appropriated is doing its job and doing exactly what you intended it to do. In closing, I'd like to leave you with this thought. We need education to get back to basics, promote self-reliance and psychological resiliency. Let's not teach the next generation let's teach the next generation what greatness looks like and how to be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Next is Michelle.
Hello, I'm not Michelle Lamb. Michelle asked me to speak in her behalf. I am Kelly
That's
Robbins.
why I messed the name up.
We didn't mess it up at all. So I'm Kelly Robbins. I am an Cali native, and I'm also an It's my pleasure to speak to you all today. I don't know y'all in Tallahassee orientation, but you are the most powerful people in the federal government. Let me repeat that. State legislators are the most powerful persons in the federal government. And I say that because the Constitution gave you all more power than Congress. Congress can only propose amendments, but the Constitution gives you guys the power to ratify, propose, and ratify amendments. You have the ability to change the very structure of our federal government. I find you all to be the true statesmen and stateswomen because you care about future generations, unlike members of Congress who are more concerned with getting reelected. After all, the founders were you. Many of our founding fathers were members of their state legislatures. They came together because the Articles of Confederation were enacted for the problems of their day. In 1787, they created a document with checks and balances so that no group had too much power. You see, they knew that power corrupts, they knew history, And they knew that all past republics had failed because all men are imperfect humans. History shows us that power can take a good man or a woman in private life and make them a tyrant in public life. You see, people then were no different than people today. The founders realized that they needed to create a government that would separate those powers into 3 different branches. And for about 120 years, it worked wonderfully. Then around the beginning of the 1900s, things started to change. Supreme Court rulings started to slowly take power away from the states and give it to the federal government. And because of those rulings, we now have a 3,000-page Constitution rather than the 4,000 words of the Constitution our founders created. And now we have government agencies who are accountable to no one, and if held to the standard of the Constitution, probably shouldn't exist. I have heard constitutional scholars say a good litmus test would be if the states can do it, the federal government should not be involved. After all, we're not 50 identical states. We are all different in our own unique way with different cultures, different traditions, and different ethnic groups. There's just no way a central government in DC can know what's best for each state. Only the states can know what's best for their people. I stand here before you today proud to represent the Convention of States. Our goal, of course, is to get to a convention for proposing amendments. But our mission is to build the nation's largest grassroots army of citizens for self-governance. Let's use Article 5 to rein in the power of the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 appearance cards that don't appear on our list. Lauren Oreo. Even closer.
That was really good.
Okay, Community Foundation of Ocala, Marion. Yep. It's pretty, I could actually read it.
There you go. Thank you for having me here, and Representative, I saw your lovely wife took off, she must be really scared about your laundry. Oh, I'm honored to address you all today on behalf of the Community Foundation for Ocala, Marion County. Our mission is simple. It's to enhance the quality of life in Ocala and Marion County through philanthropy, leadership, and community engagement. We at the Community Foundation serve as a vital link between donors who aspire to make a difference and the nonprofits in need of support to fulfill their missions. These connections ensure that charitable contributions are directed where they can make the most significant impact. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. Our Nonprofit Resource Center is a hub of knowledge and expertise that provides technical assistance, training, and resources to our local nonprofits. We provide technical assistance to nonprofits covering areas such as grant services, financial guidance, and communication strategies through our Roadmap to Success, which is a tool for creating a quality nonprofit. The center assists nonprofits in nonprofit management and building capacity within their organizations as our community continues to grow and the needs increase. In recent years, we've had the privilege of partnering with Marion County and the city of Ocala to administer $2.6 million in ARPA funding to selected local nonprofit organizations, particularly amidst the ongoing challenges presented by COVID. Our combined efforts have provided them with vital resources to sustain their invaluable work, offering critical assistance to our community when it's needed. The foundation conducted a comprehensive nonprofit economic impact study, revealing the role our local nonprofits play in our economy. Our local nonprofits support an incredible $261 million in direct wages and create an additional 60 indirect jobs for every 100 direct nonprofit positions. Also, for every $100 in nonprofit revenue, they generate an additional 70 in indirect revenue. These statistics underscore the far-reaching impact of our robust nonprofit sector in our community. We've created surveys focusing on nonprofit revenue. Most recently, we've asked nonprofits